The vision has always been like, how do you curate something that's more sustainable, but also so beautiful and luxurious and premium and sensorial that it feels like an upgrade, so it has potential to go mainstream? How do you make sustainability sexy? And how do you make everybody want to go there versus it feeling like a compromise?
Welcome to the Prosperity Playground, the podcast where business meets energetics, strategy meets soul, and prosperity becomes inevitable. I'm your host, Anna Lozano, mom, founder, investor, mentor, and energetics in business expert. This is your weekly activation to rewire how you think and feel about wealth, success, and personal power, because it's not about working harder, it's about regulating deeper, aligning stronger, and receiving wider. You don't hustle for your future, you calibrate to your higher self. Join me weekly for high-level conversations with the world's most inspiring entrepreneurs, creators, and thought leaders. True prosperity isn't just about money. It's about alignment, freedom, expansion, and embodying your worth. Welcome to the playground. Let's build your most prosperous life. Hey loves, it's Anna. Welcome back to the Prosperity Playground podcast, where business meets energetics, strategy meets soul, and prosperity becomes inevitable. Today, we're going behind the brand with a Canadian female-founded company that's changing the beauty aisle, Everist. If you've seen the chic aluminum tubes or heard the buzz about hair care meets skincare, this is the story behind it. Built by founders who chose innovation, sustainability, and courage over the safe path. My guest today is Jayme Jenkins, co-founder and chief brand officer of Everist. She is a passionate believer in building mission-driven brands and the magic that happens when purpose and profit intersect. Jayme spent over a decade at L'Oreal. She co-founded Everest in 2021 with her partner, Jessica Stevenson. The dynamic powerhouse duo were just named Canada's fastest growing consumer brand. In this episode, you'll hear how Everest evolved from a why into a category defining product line, why founder visibility matters even when it's super uncomfortable, and what it actually takes to scale DTC, win retail doors like Whole Foods, and sustain momentum as a mission-driven brand. If you're a founder, especially a product-based founder or mama building your legacy, this one will light a fire under your strategy and remind you of the power behind your why. All right, let's dive into this conversation with Jayme. Enjoy the show. Jayme Jenkins, welcome to the Prosperity Playground podcast. I'm so pumped you're here. This is totally a throwback.
I'm so excited to catch up with you, Anna. I can't wait.
So good. So we were in the same classroom at the Richard Ivey School of Business, graduates of 2007. I would love, which is crazy, right? Like feels like a lifetime ago.
Where does the time go?
I'd love to start off this conversation by you taking us on your journey post-Ivy. What did your career look like? Where did you start off? And then we will get to the now and the here after.
Sure. So I think it's a good place to start because I think everything kind of ladders up to where we are today with Everest. But after we graduated, I was one of the few people at Ivy, I think, who wanted to do marketing. There was a lot of investment banking and consultants and accountants, but I was always a little bit more creative. So wanted to kind of learn, the basics, the 101 of marketing. So after I graduated, I went to Procter & Gamble, and I spent a couple of years there doing first sales, which I think everybody should have the experience of doing at some point in their life. It's such an incredible learning experience. And then after that, I moved into kind of like a brand manager role and then like a training role actually for some of the sales teams, which was really exciting because I learned a lot about like psychology and sales psychology, which I think is really valuable, background to have. Yeah. And then I knew I always wanted to end up in beauty. So it took me, a little while, but I eventually made my way into L'Oreal, which is the biggest beauty company in the world. And started first in kind of a smaller entrepreneurial division of theirs in the luxury section. So I worked on brands like Giorgio Armani, Yves Saint Laurent Beauty, touched a little bit of Shu Uemura, which is a beautiful Japanese brand. And then I did that in Toronto for a couple of years in like a marketing kind of sales focus. And then my husband and I wanted to live abroad for a bit. So we moved to London, England in 2012, where we lived for a few years. And I worked at a global office, one of the global headquarters of L'Oreal, where I did global product development across different categories for 66 different markets, which was great.
Wow.
And then came back to Canada in 2014 into a VP marketing role. So that was my last corporate marketing role, was a VP marketing role with L'Oreal. And around that time, I had my two children. So my daughter Emery is just turned 9, and my son Archer is 6, almost 7, which is crazy. So it was
Yes.
after my maternity leave with Archer that I decided to not go back to corporate and to partner with my friend from Ivy, also Jessica, and see if we could start up something of our own.
Oh my goodness. So did you always think like you were going to continue in corporate, or did you have an entrepreneurial bug at some point?
It's a good question. I don't think I grew up wanting to be an entrepreneur. I think Jess actually probably knew much sooner than I did that she wanted to be an entrepreneur. She was in the entrepreneurial stream at Ivy. She has a family of entrepreneurs. So for her, it was probably more innate. For me, I was always really attracted to, more creative, strategic marketing roles. And I think a couple things probably happened. So first of all, just being in Canada, there's kind of a, I don't want to say like a lack, but there's like a limit, I guess, on like how many of those like real creative international marketing roles are here.
Right.
So I think coming from like an international role and then coming back into like a Canadian marketing role, it was challenging for me because I wanted to be doing like global strategy and a lot of that real like creative strategic work. So that was like part of the reason for thinking about it. And then I think even for, maybe a couple years before that, I'd been iterating with ideas. I'm a big like ideas person,
Yeah.
creative, a little bit of that like ADHD mind, always like thinking of different things. But it took me probably like 4 or 5 years of just like cycling through ideas before being ready to like jump in. And I think having actually a partner and having Jessica as a partner was what really gave me that level of commitment and accountability
Yeah.
to really get something off the ground. And also too, around that time when we started, we raised a little bit of investment from like pre-launch from some incredible kind of micro VCs and angel founders. And that also was kind of that accountability piece that really allowed me to focus in and leave my corporate role and follow that through into fruition.
Yes, because you were holding a big corporate role. Like that is a dream career on paper. So the fact that you had to do it, gosh, I have so many mindset questions, but I want to continue on this trajectory of so co-founder of Everest. Tell us about the early stages. Tell us about the moment you and Jess got together and started ideation of this product, which is like one of the fastest growing brands and companies in Canada right now. So take us through ideation to launch.
For sure. So it's interesting. Like, I think I very much believe in like iteration and evolution, and kind of our story is very much one driven by that. So, our product now is like highly unique. They're concentrates, so it's hair and body concentrates. We can chat a little bit more about that as well. But it's different. It's almost different now from where we started, and I think that's really part of the journey. And one of the reasons that I think we were able to create something so unique and so innovative is because we were really starting with the why in mind, and we were quite open on the what. And that really took us in, I think, a different direction than a lot of brands that are starting, which are like very crystal clear on the product and maybe don't have as much like flexibility there. So in the very beginning, I've always been like extremely, interested and passionate about sustainability. So in the very beginning, it was very much motivated by like the plastic waste crisis in beauty, and we're looking at like different ways to address that. So we looked at things at the beginning like a refill kind of model, kind of like a milkman type of model for beauty products, or even like a store concept, like a refillery picture, like a kind of bougie Bulk Barn Sephora hybrid. And it's so funny because I think a lot of that stuff is like coming to fruition now. I've seen even, I think it was LVMH is doing like these really beautiful, intricate, fragrance refill stations. So it's definitely coming, but at the time it was hard for us to land on a concept that we were able to achieve, obviously without a major capital investment. And I think also we're very much like product people, so we kind of zeroed in on product. And then one of the things that's like very much part of my personality is I've always loved trends. That's why I loved kind of that international work with L'Oreal, because you're kind of trend forecasting and creating new products. So one of the trends that I had seen around that time as well was this idea of waterless products. I saw it in like the home cleaning space. So a lot of cleaning products for your home are mostly water, and then you're paying for these big plastic bottles of 80% water, to ship that around the world when you could be activating them or using them with the water in your home. So that was what was happening in cleaning, and I thought that was really interesting, and nobody had really turned that lens to beauty yet. So that was actually where we started. It was this idea of, could we create waterless shower products? We tackled the shower first because obviously they're very like widely used products, and also you use them in water, so it's easy to access the water you need. So we were starting to make in the beginning this idea of like mix at home like shower concentrates, almost like a powder that you mixed with water in like kind of a keep bottle. And that's where we originally started with Everest. And it's interesting because the vision has always been like, how do you curate something that's more sustainable but also so beautiful and luxurious and premium and sensorial that it feels like an upgrade, so it has potential to go mainstream? How do you make sustainability sexy, and how do you make everybody want to go there versus it feeling like a compromise, which is what it seems like for some people? So that was really like what we were trying to create. And I think there's a ton of incredible, shampoo bar brands out there right now, but I think for us, we were trying to create something that was closer to what people were used to using. So anyway, we were trying to do these like mix at home concentrates in the beginning, working with chemists to try to get it right. Tons of failures. Like, we couldn't get the texture right because we were using all natural ingredients. We didn't want a lot of thickeners and all that stuff. So it just was not a joy to use, which is kind of a key piece of our, success, I think, is keeping that in mind. So anyway, what ended up happening is we ended up taking these like powdered concentrates, and we wanted to make them more closer to a liquid. So they were a little bit easier to use, but still kind of keep that concentrate and all the good kind of ingredients in there. So we ended up putting them in a base of aloe vera and glycerin to make them wet, almost like a paste. Right. And that's how our original cream concentrates were born. And the easiest way to describe what they are is, I think, kind of simple to understand, is they're almost like if you took a shampoo bar and you ground them up and you put them in your moisturizer. So they're 3 times concentrated creams. They're 50% skincare because that base is like aloe vera and glycerin, which are nature's most powerful moisturizers. And you use a little bit less, and then just activate them with the water in your shower. And because they have so much moisturizer in them, it's been a really interesting journey, because we started trying to create this eco product, and then once it was out in market and people were using it, we couldn't believe the feedback we were getting for people's hair and their skin and their scalp. And they were saying, especially like a lot of people who have irritation or inflammation or allergies, they were saying like, this is the only shampoo that doesn't make my scalp itch. This is the only product that works for me. And obviously lots of great hair results as well with texture changes and stuff like that, because there is so much moisturizer in there. So anyway, it kind of was like a journey of discovery, following the breadcrumbs, bringing something really innovative to market. And then since it's been in market, it's been always very iterative. So always continuing to like talk to our community, improve, tweak, learn, adapt. I think that's very central to how we create product, and has been kind of I think our secret advantage.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So much to unpack. So I think something key that you said for anyone listening, because, I've been in the stages of my life where I decided I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And then I'm like, well, what is the idea? What is the product? And you're sitting at night and you're praying like, God, show me the thing that's going to impact millions of people around the world. And, it takes time to come through. And so what I love that you said is you guys started with a why. So you had a really powerful North Star, this why that drove your creativity and really exploration. So you were looking at what is happening in the marketplace, and then you found a gap, an area of opportunity that you decided to run with. So when you were testing that first iteration of product, how long was that phase? And were there any moments where you're like, holy shit, is this ever going to be what we envision in our mind to launch?
Yeah, totally. There's many of those moments. And I also want to just highlight what you said, because I think that's so important. If you look at like most of the really successful companies out there, all of the unicorns, like almost all of them started as a different concept.
Yes.
So I think it's pretty, I can't think of any example of a super incredibly successful brand that started with something and the product didn't change tremendously. Even in some cases, it's like the industry has changed. Yes. So I think that's like just part of entrepreneurship. I think for myself, even like for so many years, I was so focused on like what's the idea, but it's not really that. It's you need to have a good idea, of course, and like you can be able to defend it and do your business plan and show you have a sizable market, and all this stuff is important. But the more important thing is actually like just starting and like learning, and
Exactly.
then the idea will become so much more refined, or may even like change completely as you begin to like learn and better understand your market and your customers. So I think that's like a really important point. And I also want to highlight too how like, I don't want to say stressful, but like how lonely or isolating it can feel when you're in that process of trying to figure out exactly, what the idea is, or bring something to fruition. As you asked, like that, I think stage of Jess and I trying to do that initial product development was probably like 18 months, if not longer, maybe 2 years of like failed formula after failed formula after failed
Wow.
formula. And like so many times it just was not working. Like I think one of the times, like there's so many things I can think about. One time when, we kind of hit the end of the wall with like the powder water mixture, and we're like, this is just like not going to work. So there was like a break in time before we like figured out the like skincare base and like got it going again. And then there's other times where, all of our packaging, we try to really limit single use plastic and use aluminum as much as we can. And where we have these like small plastic components, we have a closed loop program to return them, because our vision was to create as close to a zero waste beauty company as possible. So anyway, working with the aluminum packaging, so challenging. The aluminum tubes, there's were times where we had, batches of formula that were like rock hard. You could not get them out of the tube because the formulas themselves were so sensitive and the tubes are so sensitive to being used. So just so many things I think went wrong in that development process, and many of them felt like dead ends. But I think just having a commitment, I think, to each other, to really like see it through, and also to our early investors, which I think helped a lot as well, to push through and just like find ways to like make it work, was really what brought about a lot of that creativity and
Oh,
problem solving.
so phenomenal. So you're a marketer, and your expertise is branding and strategy, and really and that creative piece. What's Jess's background?
Good question. We actually started with like similar backgrounds.
Yeah.
So she's also a marketer by trade. And then at the later part of her career had more like general management experience. And it's funny, we both kind of started in a similar place. And then because we're co-founders, we almost had to diverge a little
Yeah.
bit. So I kind of become kind of the de facto like creative founder, which is so funny because it's like I used to spend a lot of time like looking at P&Ls and stuff, and I think Jess does more of that stuff now, and more of the finance and ops and kind of general management side, and I'm more on like the brand, product, comms, marketing side. So it's interesting how we've kind of split, but in the
Yes.
beginning our profiles were very different, and we had to kind of figure out the divide of our work.
This is the thing, and everything that you're describing in that startup phase are all new skills that you were learning. Like that was not your
Right.
expertise. Like yes, you had this VP of marketing title and success in your corporate role, but it's completely different from formulating products. Like yes, you can bring
Totally.
it to market and launch successfully, but everything else
Yes.
leading up to that phase. Now, what was that moment where you realized, okay, this could be big?
I can't think of like one breakthrough moment. There was just so many like different, there was a bunch of different ones, I
Yeah.
guess. I would say like the first time that we got the product right, like pre-launch, when we were able to create that like suspension of the cleansers in that like skincare base, and
Yeah.
we tried it and we were both like, oh my God, this is the best shampoo I've ever used. Like it's
Wow.
incredible. Like, and that was I think a breakthrough moment for us, like before we launched. And then there's also been like lots of moments along the way where we've been able to see a lot of our growth because we've been able to figure out how to like communicate the story of Everest a little bit more clearly. Like it's a quite a complicated product, and
Right.
that whole long spiel I told you is a lot to fit,
Yeah.
on a landing page. So I think we've been starting in more recent years to communicate about our products like hair care meets skincare, and
Yes.
almost like talking about all, as opposed to not talking about the water in the formulas. Because in the beginning we were really messaging a lot about like, look at this innovation we made, and
Right.
your shampoo has mostly water and this one doesn't. But now flipping the script a little bit and talking more about what is in it, which is that aloe vera and glycerin base and the benefits of that for hair, for scalp, and for skin, and telling the story as like hair care meets skincare, even showing like cues of like skincare with like the beautiful textures of the product. Like it's almost like a La Mer texture. Like it's a really rich, beautiful cream. So it's very sensorial to use as well. So playing more of that like beauty story has really also been an unlock for us because it just makes it easier for people to understand what the product is. So that
Right.
was a big piece of it as well.
Oh my gosh, so good. So you guys are 4 years. You're coming on 4 years.
We'll be, yeah, 4.5 years in, yeah, since we launched.
Which is, I mean, looking at the explosive growth. So, Everest is a 20-time award winning product, recently ranked by Globe and Mail as one of the top growing companies of 2025. Congratulations. I've
Thank
loved
you.
watching your
Appreciate it.
story. Like, everything you're describing, I'm like, yes, I did see that on Instagram. And, you guys do have advertising budget. And so I'm targeted often. And it's really cool to witness the evolution, like you said. But can you share with us right now, like today in age 2025, what is working in terms of scaling a product-based business?
It's a good question. I feel like every every couple months, everybody's like, "This is the hardest time that it's ever been to scale," and it just keeps going.
Going.
Like every few months, everybody's saying it again. So it has been a crazy year, really crazy year. I think we do a lot of business in the U.S. as well, more than half of our business.
Okay.
But we are based in Canada. We're a Canadian team, and we make the majority of our products here. So it's been really tricky, like trying to navigate the trade situation has
Yes.
been like a big tricky thing this year. And then that and just figuring out like all of the changes all the time with like digital marketing is constantly in flux. So I think what has been part of our, growth is really finding a way to like it's the messaging and it's the platform. So a lot of it has been through growth with our digital ads is like a big piece of it, and also like our organic content plays a big part of it as well. And I think the reason it's worked well for us is because there's like a natural word of mouth that's happening around the product. So like part of I think what is making the product really interesting is there's a lot of like conversations in the comments, a lot of like personal testimonials about how the product has really transformed their hair, their skin and their scalp. And I think that's helping, everything be more efficient. Still like 70% of the traffic to our website is organic. So there's like
Okay.
still a lot of like word of mouth happening.
Yeah.
But definitely finding that like platform for storytelling and telling our story because it is a very unique story is what unlocked that growth for us. And I think, being visible as
Yes.
founders is like I think sure you guys talk about this all the time on your show is so important, and we were so reluctant and I'm still so reluctant. So every time you see my face on Instagram, know that I hate it. But
And
I do think it helps build trust to have people behind the brand and to
yes.
be telling the story in a way that only like one of the founders could. So
Yes,
I
honestly,
think
and I
that's a big part of it.
love seeing your founder stories and both of you together. And you're not dressed up to the nines, like you're in the grind, in the day
Totally.
to day, and you're showcasing that. I think it's
Yeah.
really relatable for community building. You do a great job at it. Thank you for revealing to us that it is
It's
uncomfortable.
horrible. I hate it, but I'll do it. If it gets you to try my shampoo, I will happily do
I
it.
love that. So that's definitely beautiful. Did you guys like, was it a decision to be forward facing founders?
Yeah, it was like a painful decision. It
Wow.
was a decision that we knew we had to make for probably like an 18 months before we actually did it. And even now, I think even getting new content into the mix is like hard to do because at the end of the day, like we are running a business and a team, and like to get into the headspace of making content when you have a stressful, and I also I have like young kids as well. So like
Yes.
there's just so much going on in life to just feel like you have you're in like the headspace, or in the mood to make content is like so tricky. But I think, like you said, it's really important to remember that it doesn't have to be perfect, and it can, doesn't have to be super polished. And I think just like really authentically speaking to our story and our why, which is all true in terms of why we created this brand and like the purpose behind it, I think is what helps people connect.
For sure. And it just gets people behind you because there are so many successful brands where we don't actually even know who the founders are. But I think this is
Right.
that key connection piece, especially today and age. Like there's been a surge of companies online. The online space has exploded post COVID. So I
Yeah.
love that for you guys. And Jess just had a baby too. Her
Jess just had her
second.
second baby. Yes. Elena. So she's on like a small, short mat leave right now. So it's been extra crazy,
Let's
but
add
I'm
something
so
else into the mix of being
yeah,
founders as
exactly.
moms. So, another thing you guys
Exactly.
do a tremendous job at is your PR. Did you
Thank you.
decide that this was going to be a key area of investment? And maybe you can share some of your key results that have driven the ROI.
For sure. So, yes, it was definitely a choice. And it was something that we purposely invested in really heavily at the beginning. But I don't think that has to be the case for every brand. I think you can do quite a bit of that storytelling on your own. But for us, it was a little bit different. So, because we had this like really innovative product and we kind of created a product that didn't exist before and we had a patent pending, we really wanted to launch with some strong PR to kind of establish ourselves as, the first ones to market to do this. So that was why it was important for us to invest in PR when we launched. And also because the product is so unique, I think there was something important to us from like a credibility perspective to get a lot of these awards that we won. So as you mentioned, Everest has won, more than, I think it's probably like 24, 25 different beauty awards now, including Cosmopolitan's Best Clean Conditioner for a deep conditioner. We've won awards from Bustle. We won an award from Men's Health for Best Shampoo. There's like so many different beauty awards in there, and that was important for us in the beginning to build credibility because it is like a new form factor. So to get people to try it and have it endorsed by these beauty editors, I think was really important. But also at the same time, we don't always have PR on. I think there's times when we're really focused on investing in channels that are really measurable in terms of ROI, and I think there's times when we feel like we're able to invest more in that, like that brand building, storytelling, and PR. So it really depends on the moment in the business, and I don't think you necessarily need to invest a ton in PR out the gate, but for us it was kind of like a strategic choice based on the fact the product was so innovative.
Right. I love that. So you guys are you mostly e-commerce? Are you also doing retail partnerships? What's working really well in
We're
both
about
areas?
85% D2C,
Yeah.
direct to consumer e-commerce. And then the balance is we're in like a bunch of like kind of specialty beauty boutiques. We're in like the Detox Market, Health Hut in Toronto. And then we're in Whole Foods in all over North America, so Canada and the US, which is a lot of doors. Grove Collaborative. So that's kind of our like almost like eco luxe grocery kind of channel. And then as we're kind of evolving, we're now moving more towards to like this other beauty channels and really kind of leveling up our presence and I guess the beauty space. So that's really the next frontier.
Yes. So for any founder listening, I mean, one of our big goals when we were scaling Love Powered was to be at Indigo. Chapters Indigo was, huge goal. Tell us about getting into
Yeah.
Whole Foods because I've heard it is one heck of a journey to get into those.
Yeah, it's really tough, especially like in the US, there's like 500 doors. So it's a big feat for a
Yes.
small brand. But yeah, it was really, challenging. I think it's interesting from us, like it kind of came backwards because we had such an innovative product and we had so much PR in the beginning. They actually came to us
Oof,
to list in Whole Foods, which is
amazing.
exciting. But that's I think what people don't realize is getting into retail is the easy part. I know
Right?
it can be like hard for some people, and it's not always, some people it's more challenging to get in, and then different for us. That getting in was the easier part, and I think just managing these 500 doors and obviously like trying to train as many of the staff as you can and get people sampling and have the product pop on the shelf is more of the like challenging part. So retail in general is like incredibly challenging and resource intensive and requires like a lot of focus. So what I would say actually for anybody like I think this is a really good piece of advice for anybody that's like starting out in a brand and you feel like you like need to get into that like retailer to grow, that is usually like not the ticket. That's
Yes.
like one extra stressful piece that will be on you once you're in that retailer and you're really accountable for like turning the product. So it's better to be able to generate demand yourself through
Yes.
e-commerce and then have that like flow out to retail, which is what's kind of happening with us now. In the beginning when we actually launched Whole Foods, we our e-commerce hadn't scaled as much as it had scaled now, so it was really hard to like try to educate in the store.
Yes.
But now because we have been able to scale our e-commerce and we have more control over that and messaging and be able to scale it, we are seeing just naturally
Yeah.
people come into Whole Foods and replenish because they have that brand awareness.
Yes.
So I think everybody feels this like rush to retail to feel like they kind of have established the brand, but I think it's really important that you're able to generate demand as a brand first and then direct traffic to those retailers because you can't really count on them to move your product off the shelf. That's your job.
This
So
is
you really
it.
need to be able to do that demand generation. And it's a lot of pressure. So unless you feel like you're ready and you've kind of got that on lock, don't rush it because it can be make or break for small brands because it's so expensive.
Absolutely. Like that's gold. Obviously working with smaller boutiques is different because there's, maybe a
Yes, yes,
relationship with the owner of the store who has a love for your
absolutely. Yeah,
product, but
yeah,
once you're in these big retailers, the sell through is really important to the buyers. Like they're looking at numbers and that's what matters most. It
absolutely.
doesn't matter if the buyer loves your products. It matters if the product
Exactly.
sells in the store. So yeah,
Exactly.
this is
Exactly.
huge. If we look at mindset, so moving you, Jayme, as co-founder, so moving from being in a corporate role into the entrepreneurial space, what are some mindset shifts that you specifically needed to work through?
Well, good question. I feel like there's so many. It was just like had to be like almost like a total undoing of
Yes.
how we were doing business before. So there was a lot of like, I would say there was a lot of like tactical mindsets just in terms of like how you run the day to day. So Jess and I were obviously used to having teams and budgets, and we had to learn again, which is so much fun. Actually, I love being scrappy. I think it's probably my favorite thing. I love that like, 0 to 10 million phase. It's like when you're just like so into everything and growing and trying, and I love that really scrappy phase. So yeah, we had to kind of just like learn how to do everything ourselves for the first like probably 18 months. It was just Jess and I before we even started bringing people on. So we're, doing everything from like shipping boxes
Yeah.
and customer service and all that stuff, which was great. Thankfully, we had like some really great manufacturers making the product and a chemist that we worked with. But yeah, lots of like hands-on stuff, which I actually don't mind. I really love that phase, and I think it teaches you the foundations of the business. So there was a lot of like mindset shifts there in terms of how to build from the beginning and then like hiring a team. I think we have an incredible team at Everest. I'm probably one of the things I'm most proud of. They're excellent. And I think just making the right hires at the right time. So in the beginning, I think you need to hire more for profile than skill set. So like finding the right fit, just like really smart. I like to call them like Swiss Army knives, like people that can do a
A
lot of
lot of
different
different.
functions, and are in it with you and want to get like their hands dirty. And then obviously as you grow, hiring more expertise. So on like the tactical business side, I feel like there's was lots of learnings and I really enjoyed like doing things differently in terms of like mindset. That's an interesting one. I don't know if I have the answer yet. I feel like it's just a constant evolution.
Evolution.
Um, I guess if you can't be an entrepreneur unless you love learning and you love being outside of your comfort zone because I think just every day is so challenging in like so many ways. It's really just transformative as a person.
It really
So,
is.
yeah,
It's the biggest personal growth adventure we will ever embark on, and it will push our edges and our limits. And yet it's like the best
100%.
feeling ever, right? Like when you
Yeah,
see
it's the best and the worst and every feeling in between. Yeah, it's all of the feelings all of the time. But I think if you really are passionate about what you're doing and you are obsessed with product and the community and all that, it's like it enables you to push through some of those like more challenging times.
yes,
But it can be really, really tough, but it can also be, that's what makes it
that
a great learning experience.
yes, absolutely. And what about for you in terms of balancing motherhood and entrepreneurship? So you have two kiddos, 7 and 9, same age as mine. So we had kids the same years. Yeah.
Yes, we did. Yeah.
How do you do it? How do you balance?
Um, well, shout out to my husband. I
Woohoo!
think, yeah, gotta give him props. Like, I think it really takes a village
Yeah.
to make everything work and family as well. We lean on as well. Like, we live close to family members, and I think that's been particularly helpful, especially as we're getting into this like activities season with the kids. Like,
Yeah.
always things every night. So, really grateful for that. I think, and we've made choices like with our lifestyle, I think, to enable me to do this. So, because we live close to family, because, we're able to get that help when we need it. So, I think that's part of it. And then, yeah, it's just I don't know. It's crazy on the day to day, but I think it's really important for them to see you building and obviously being able to do this, in the post-COVID era has given us a lot more flexibility. So we're remote 4 days a week. We're in the office in Toronto 1 day a week, but being home most days to, see the kids after school and put them on the bus in the morning has been like incredible to have that flexibility. So yeah, it's just a constant balance and a constant struggle. I think probably the hardest part is like the mind shift between like entrepreneur mode and like parenting mode
Yeah.
and how they just are like so intermeshed. You can get off like a call where you have to be using your like boss energy, and then like a child like needs something from you or needs your emotional kind of softer side, and you very quickly have to like be able to switch back and forth. So I feel like that's probably one of the harder things. Like it's such a different part of your brain that you use for both
Oh
sides.
my gosh,
So it's
yes.
hard when you're together. But it's like a good thing too, because I think it balances you, right? It like forces you to like have to access different parts of you. It forces you to have to shut off sometimes and be present with your family. So I think there's definite advantages of that. And I think we need more founders that are parents. And I think to bring more of that balance, I think there's like tons of opportunities. So it can absolutely be done. I think it's challenging, but it's very worthwhile.
Yes, and like having these conversations, I'm laughing because I recorded with Jillian Harris a couple of weeks ago. The podcast has already launched, and so I'm getting off. Like I'm like on this high. I'm like, this is such a great conversation. The kids roll in from school. One's like nagging about something that she did,
Oh my
and I was like,
God.
girls,
I feel you.
mommy just interviewed Jillian Harris. They don't give a fuck.
Don't care. Yeah, exactly. Like, where's my snack?
Where's my snack? Because I didn't eat my lunch and I'm starving and I'm
Yeah.
hangry and I need it
Oh,
now.
100%.
Okay. So we
A
need to
hundred percent. A
we
hundred
need to have
percent.
these conversations because that's the reality. And
Yeah,
it's like it yeah, it's
it
just
is.
it's nothing is predictable and it's
Yes.
part of the process. So what is one lesson you'd want every founder to know?
One lesson. Oh, that's hard. Um, you know what? I think like linking it back to motherhood again, I think if when you become a new mom and you find your like community of like
Yeah.
moms and that's what kind of like sustains you, I think as a founder you need also that same thing. So I am so grateful. I have like a ton of other founder friends who are so generous with their time, and I think we share in the highs and the lows and resources and all of that stuff. And people who are around, I think, like the same stage of business as you is like particularly helpful because you're often dealing with a lot of the same challenges. So for me, that's been, you know, what keeps me sane in
Mm,
some of these like up and down days is just having other people who understand what we're going through or the challenge that we have. And I think it's really important for like long-term endurance in this, crazy game is to be able to have people to just like bring you that balance and some of that, peace.
yeah. Who's been one of your like key mentors during these last 4 years?
We've had a lot of incredible mentors, but I think there's a lot of like incredible founder friends too that
Yeah.
are just have been part of this like group. So I can just shout out some of them. Like my friend Amy from Palm has
Oh,
been
Amy's so
incredible. So
great.
check out like Palm Hair. They're wonderful.
Yeah.
The girls at Lawn Candles. Like there's so many of these like incredible Jackie from Guests on Earth, like
Yeah.
cleaning products. There's so many of these like incredible Canadian consumer brands that are growing with really awesome, female founders. So
Yeah.
it's definitely worth checking all of them out and supporting them because I know they're all working their butts off just
Yes.
like we are.
Yes. It's so cool to witness, like we're in our 40s now and there's so
Hmm.
many epic female founded Canadian brands run by women who
Yes.
are also mothers and are in the
Yeah.
grind, are in the process. So it's really, really cool to witness. And I love that you say that. So really that peer-to-peer support, being surrounded by founders in similar stages and then having those coaches and mentors that might be, 10 steps ahead, but really finding a balance with the both. I absolutely love that. Is there a book, a resource, or a ritual, something that you personally practice, read, dive into, go back to that has really supported you on this journey?
That's a good question. Um, I love podcasts,
Yes.
so I listen to like multiple podcasts a week. I'm just obsessed with them, and I also, especially now that I turned 40 recently, have been trying to be really diligent about exercise. I like to go in the mornings, trying to lift more weights. Like I feel like that's just like the best way to start the day and like get in the right headspace, especially to like go before the kids are up. So when I get home and like that whole morning rush before school, I feel like I'm just better able to handle all
Yes.
of the chaos. Yes. So gym in the morning, walks or runs with podcasts is like a big piece of it. I love to read. I love different books. I try to like always read new things. There's not a lot of books that I come back to, but actually one that I have just come back to again and I feel myself like going into every once in a while is Brianna Wiest has like a book called The Mountain Is You, which
Okay.
is like just incredible. So check that one out.
Yeah.
And I read like you can read it like just a little section at a time. So I think that's a really good one. And then also The Hard Thing About Hard Things is like a really classic like entrepreneurial book that talks about the hard
The hard
things.
things.
So like that's one that I come back to every once in a while as well. But yeah, generally I'm always like loving to try like all the new things. So I want to read the new book, try the new podcast. I'm excited to read Bobby Brown just came out with a book, which I'm really excited to read. And she talks about how she was like a soccer mom, which I love because I'm like a hockey mom for doing this. So I'm like, Bobby, I relate to you. So anyway, I
So
think
good.
just always trying like the new and the latest stuff is part of
So
my MO.
so good. I love that. I felt like for 15 years I was only focused on personal development books, and then this past summer I dove into smut. I picked up Carly Fortune's new
Tell me
book.
which one. I have a series that I like too. Which is your smut du jour? You got
Carly
to share.
Fortune, and she's Toronto based, and
Mm,
like all
so
oh,
good.
so good.
Love them.
I read 3 smut books this summer, which is insane.
It's actually so nice. I have also a smut collection that I like. My sister-in-law turned me onto this series called A Court of Thorn and
Okay,
Roses.
never heard of it.
Have you
No.
read it? It's like sexy fairies. It's like a book that I would never ever think about reading, and I actually love having something that's not personal
Yeah.
development related to dig into as well. So if you are into some sexy fairies, I would say go pick up this A Court of Thorn and Roses
I'm adding it to
series.
my list.
Shout out to Trisha for that one.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I love that so much. Okay, is there anything else that I might have missed that you'd love to add to this conversation?
I don't think so. I think it was a great chat. If you haven't tried
Yes.
Everest, go check it out. They're incredible products and amazing for scalp health and healthy hair growth, which is kind of the new direction that we're leaning into more. We actually launched a new product yesterday called Everboost, which is a multi-peptide scalp serum. So
Love.
check it out. And yeah, just like so grateful for the support from our community and, for Canadian female founders. I think we just really felt the love this year and we're so grateful for that. It makes a massive difference to our businesses.
So good. And it's also a great reminder, if you love a product, like leave a review. It really is
Yeah,
so supportive. Share it with your friend. It's, this economy, it's busy out there, it's noisy out there. When you find products or services or, things that you
totally.
love, share it with others because we are so grateful on the other side of this. I have
Absolutely.
two final questions for you.
Okay, I'm
So,
ready.
your future self, Jayme, 20 years from today. So, she's
Oh
60.
my gosh.
What is
Okay.
she saying to you? What wisdom is she sharing with you? Something that you need to hear today?
Oh, oh my goodness. I feel like emotional when you just made me think of that. I have this like vision. So the street that we live on now is called like Well Street. So I have this vision of like down the line having this. I haven't said this out loud, so it's funny to kind of go through this exercise here, but creating this like eventually I'd love to get into like investing in women, building companies kind of like we are with like purpose, want to make the world better. So I have this vision of creating something like a Wall Street Ventures to kind of acknowledge this like building phase that I'm in right now, where everything feels hard and the kids are young and the business is young and it's like a grind. But I think like looking back on it in 20 years, it's going to be like when look back on like early motherhood, it's going to be like, oh, those were the best years. But when you're in it, it's like, oh my God, this is insane. But I have a feeling I'm going to be like reflective in the future about this being like a really special time.
Oh, I love that. I have goosebumps for you, and I will hold the intention for you as well. And finally, what is your definition of prosperity?
Oh my gosh, so many good questions, Anna. For me, it's like, I think it's freedom.
Yeah.
It's just freedom to pursue what you want to pursue, to take chances, I think, to do things a little bit differently. I think just being able to, carve a different path. One of our, key values at Everest is there is no playbook. And I think there is, we don't do ordinary. So like thinking about things a little contrarian and being able to like try and fail sometimes and learn, I think is like the ultimate freedom.
Okay. And finally, where can we find you and find Everest?
So you can find me on Instagram at jayme.everist. It's Jayme.everest, Everist, or our brand page is helloeverest.com or at helloeverest.
So good. I almost introduced you, Jayme Everest. Welcome to the Prosperity Playground at the beginning. Thank you so much for being here, for sharing your time. Everyone, make sure to check out the products. And once you do, share the love with others. Thanks, Jayme. Thanks for joining me on today's episode of the Prosperity Playground podcast. If this conversation sparked something in you, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts so you never miss your weekly activation. If you enjoyed the conversation, please rate and review. Your feedback helps us reach more souls just like you who are ready to calibrate to their most prosperous life. Know someone who needs this frequency boost? Share the episode to Instagram and tag me at _Anna Lozano so we can grow our energetically aligned community together. And please remember, true prosperity is about alignment, freedom, expansion, and embodying your worth. Start today. I'm Anna Lozano, and this is the Prosperity Playground. See you on the next activation.